Welcome to my yearly F1 game settings video, this time for the brand new F125 game. In this one I'm going to show you my wheel settings both in-game and in my wheel software, and then after we're going to jump into my camera settings for every single car. So stay tuned, down below you're going to have timestamps for every single part of the video that interests you the most, so click ahead to whichever part is in your interest. So here we are then, F125 game menu. We're going to jump down to settings all the way at the bottom. From there we're going to go to controls, vibration and force feedback. Now you're going to pick a preset, which one it's up to you, whichever one suits your wheel, whichever one suits your setup the best or nearest to. Doesn't have to be a one-to-one match. In my case it's the Formula V 2.5, and then within this you're going to go and click edit. Now that will bring you up onto a splash screen, and that's going to be this one right here. So now you're going to get to customize your own preset. So first off you have the control scheme. Now the buttons this year haven't changed anything. I'm still currently getting used to the changes. There's actually been a few modifications from 24 to 25 on my wheel specifically, and I'm still deciding if I like them or not. So for now I'm not changing nothing. So we're going to delve into calibration first and foremost and talk about three concepts, technically four, but three. So first off, the irrelevant concept here is steering rate. This is a pad setting only, so it doesn't really apply to your wheel. The higher you go, the more sensitive your joysticks and your steering rate is going to be, and the lower you go, the slower, more sluggish it's going to feel. So with that out of the way, kind of irrelevant, we have three main concepts. We have dead zone, linearity, saturation. Starting off with dead zone. Now what this is, as the name indicates, it's a dead zone. In other words, it doesn't work, no activity, nothing happens. Okay, so in my case I have dead zone applied to my throttle and my brake. It's the only things I've changed in this game, because basically what happens is I have a bit of a lazy foot sometimes, whether I'm braking or accelerating. So this is very easily done. You basically go into the test buttons in the bottom right, just press the control that applies to your wheel or your controller, but specifically in this case your wheel, and you basically just kind of rest. So let your feet rest on the pedals, and you might have 1 or 2 percent, it might be a little bit. So basically I would recommend going whatever you have plus 1. So if you have just 1 or 2, make it 2 or 3. In my case I had about 2 or 3, sometimes 4 on the brake, so I've gone to 5 on both. I might fine tune that as the game goes on, but for now I'm keeping it simple, just to basically avoid either leaning on the brake or the throttle, which can compromise and slow you down in terms of raw performance. So the same concept applies to the steering. So basically, if you want a dead straight wheel, you can put a bit of dead zone on, so basically nothing will happen in like a small range. And it basically reduces the scale. So let's say you've got a 0 to 100 scale. If you take out the first 5%, you're going to have basically a 95% scale and slightly more sensitive steering in a shorter radius, if that makes sense. So that's what dead zone is in a nutshell. Now for linearity, the same concept applies to all three. Imagine you've got a graph, okay, so a vertical, horizontal graph, and you've got a straight line, drawn across. That's going to be your linearity graph, okay? So if you have a straight line, it's consistent from top to bottom all the way through the movement, whether that's you steering or whether that's you applying a throttle or a brake. The minute you start to put on linearity, it's going to create a curve. So what happens is, basically, if you start from the bottom, not a lot happens in the initial part because you're kind of flattening the straight line into a curve. And then suddenly, when you go past, like, let's say 45%, 50%, suddenly it's going to start to kick up and ramp up and become very aggressive and sensitive. So basically, let's say if you start to turn, nothing will happen until you get to 90 degrees, and then suddenly that little bit beyond 90 degrees becomes very sensitive and very aggressive. So if that's something you like, whether it's for your steering, for your throttle or for your brake, that is what linearity is. And saturation basically is the complete opposite. So this is going to give you a lot of sensitivity in the initial part of the movement and kind of kill out the back end and make it a lot flatter. So if you want a much more sensitive, responsive, reactive throttle, brake or steering arc, then if you put saturation on, it's going to make the first bit of the movement very, very, very sharp, sensitive. The car's going to be very pointy if you're steering, and then suddenly as you kind of get to the end, it's not really going to make much difference at all, as most of the turning will be done in the initial phase. Same goes for a throttle or a brake. So you're going to get a lot of acceleration, and it's going to be very hard to manage your throttle at the start, and then suddenly the end bit is going to be quite dead. So I wouldn't really recommend saturation unless you have some sort of issue with your equipment. Now, with that out the way, we can delve into vibration and force feedback. To be fair, pretty simple. I've actually copy and pasted my settings from F1 24. All I've done is reduce the wheel rotation to 300. In last year's game, I started the game cycle with 360 or 400. Eventually, I kind of worked my way down throughout the game cycle, and this one I've actually started out back where I was in F1 23, back on 300. And the reason for this is simple. By default, the game on the wheel has a 360-degree pattern. I'm actually running 300, and it's basically to have a bit of a sharper front end, and it's more of a league racing competitive mechanism to make the car feel a bit nicer on the front, and you can feel it a bit more, and also slightly less, range of motion, a bit easier to manage. I know other people that run like 270 as well, so this is a little bit of personal preference. So I do recommend you kind of trial this a little bit and find your range. But 300 for me is what I've run now for over 2.5 years. So I do recommend you give it a go. But 360 is the baseline template. I know people that run 330, 320, like I said, 270. So this takes a bit of trial and error and just getting comfortable. As for the rest, it's pretty straightforward and self-explanatory, really. Read the concepts on the right side, it will help you understand what they are. But basically, by default, Fanatec is recommended to run 70 in terms of vibration and force feedback. This is a Fanatec Formula V2.5 Club Sport rim with the Fanatec DD Plus motor. This has a 15 nanometer in terms of strength, so that's what I'm running. I'm running also the CSL Elite V2 pedals. So yeah, if you guys want to get this or have a look at this, I'll have a link down below. So go check it out. I'm also an affiliate, so anything you get from Fanatec will support me directly. But basically, that's what I run in terms of my wheel. I'm on a next level Formula Light Pro rig, which is what I'm sitting on as well. So that's my setup. Again, it's all linked down below in the description box, so scroll down and have a look. But yeah, basically, in terms of other settings, you want to run the effects quite low because you don't want them to disrupt your driving, and you don't want to have too many bumps or things kind of, really interrupting your experience. You want to try and just have a smooth rotation experience, application and control. I find having a lot of effects can make it very bumpy, very unstable, hard to press buttons, you might miss buttons, and just generally lack a bit of precision. So give us a go, let me know what you think. But these are my settings, and yeah, make sure you run wheel damper on 1. That's what I use for mine. It is on 10 by default. I find it makes the wheel feel very sluggish and kind of janky in low speed. I don't really like it, so I've got it on 1. It makes a big difference from 0 to 1, so I do recommend you just run it on that setting. And yeah, generally speaking, those are my wheel settings. So we're now going to jump into the Fanatec or the Fanalab software and show you what I run over there, and then we'll delve into camera settings. Right, here we are then in Fanalab, and this is basically the Fanatec software to calibrate and set up your wheel. So you can see my 3 elements here. So Club Sport DD Plus base, Club Sport steering wheel, Formula V2.5, and the CSL Elite pedals, which is what I said before. So in the tuning menu, I am running, as you can see, 300-degree sensitivity, and then just basically copy the rest of the settings here. I basically have the spring and damper turned off. It's a much better experience. I do recommend you give it a go, and it does make the wheel feel a bit better. I run 15% brake force. Okay, this is important because basically, depending on what setup or rig you're running, brake falls, how much pressure you put on the brake to get that 100%, stoppage is going to be important. So my rig is designed to be a portable or mobile rig. It's not a super solid structure like other rigs you may see. So mine, if I, press the brake a lot, it moves a lot and it's not super stable. Mine's a bit more lightweight. So in a nutshell, I'm running my brake force on 15, which is basically something I can manage. You basically want to aim for your brake force to be on the limit. So what you think is possible to max out, just about reach 100%, without being too uncomfortable or struggling. So something you can manage, but it needs to be on the limit. That's the best way to explain it. So that's what I run. And yeah, if you want to give these settings a go, feel free. Again, we've got the 15 nanometer in terms of torque. So that's what I have for my wheel. And I have this saved as a preset. Now, to be fair, this is actually my F124 preset because we don't have F125 yet. So these are all my settings. You can feel free to copy if you like. But anyway, guys, we're going to jump into the camera settings now. So I'm not going to talk. It's basically visual. You just pause the video as of when you need things. So check it out. All I ask is for a like on the video and a subscribe. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. And yeah, cheers for watching.